So this is a recording of my presentation, PowerPoint for classroom instruction. I'm going to move pretty quick just to keep things moving. Know that at the end there will be a link to download the slides as well as handouts with notes. All the demonstrations are done in Windows PowerPoint desktop since that's primarily what faculty use here at Cedarville. And this is where we're heading. We're going to start with some basic design principles. I could jump right into the fun tips and tricks and show how much PowerPoint can automate for you, but that's like showing ChatGPT to your students to write a paper, and I don't think you'd let your students get away with that. So just like in class, you have to understand some of the why and how things work before you can press that easy button. So we're going to start by going over some basic design principles that not only apply to your PowerPoint slides, but to anything else you might be designing. After that, we'll go over some best practices and show you some helpful design tools really throughout the presentations, these tools that are built into PowerPoint that can help you save time. So let's talk basics. We all have varying levels of skill when it comes to recognizing good design or being creative. Some people are blessed by God to, from a young age, make everything they touch just look amazing. They have this natural gift for creating crafts, artwork, decor arrangements, and photographs that just look amazing. And what's interesting is that these people often can't even tell you why something looks good, which is why I call this gift instinctive design. People with instinctive design naturally know what looks good, and they have the ability to make unconscious decisions to filter out bad design choices. Now, you may be sitting there thinking, that's not me. This is what you look like when you have to design something. Good design will just always be a mystery, and you don't think you could ever do that. You'll always have to hire one of those right-brained instinctive designers to make your poster or photograph or design PowerPoint slides. Think about yourself, whether you identify with that or not. Well, I'm here to deliver some good news if you identify with that. Good design skills can be learned. In fact, if you collect various forms of design, whether it be graphic design, photography, sculpture, interior design, and if you put them all side by side, you'll start to see patterns emerge. Surprisingly, these expressions of unique creativity still follow several universal rules. This means that if you follow the rules and learn to follow the rules, you can ensure that your creative efforts can be successful regardless of your natural abilities. Will it be harder? Yeah. Will it take a bit of work? Yes, but it is possible. So this is a learned skill, and so I call this skill analytical design. And today I plan to help you discover your analytical design skills by teaching you some basic design principles. Now, there's a lot of different design principles lists out there, and the ones I'm presenting I found when selecting the textbook for a class that I taught several years ago at Taylor University. It was a class for business majors, so they were non-designers. I found this book called The Non-Designer's Design Book by Robin Williams. It was originally written in 1993. Now it's in its 4th edition, and I highly recommend it. It includes 4 main design principles, as well as basic instruction on things like color choice, typography, and other various designer tips and tricks. So the 4 principles you'll find in this book are proximity, alignment, repetition, and contrast. And you can remember those with the acronym PARC, or P-A-R-C, or you might find it easier to remember them backwards, but at your own peril. All right, so right at the beginning of the book, the author states, "I guarantee that if you follow these basic principles, your work will look more professional, organized, unified, and interesting, and you will feel empowered." So that is the promise should you pick up this book. All right, so let's dive right into the first principle, proximity. This is the design principle we all do most naturally without really thinking of it. We organize and group items that relate to each other close together. That's the basic idea. When several items are in close proximity to each other, they actually become one visual unit rather than several separate units. So this helps our eyes organize the information, it reduces clutter, and gives the reader more clear structure. So let's take a look at an example. The headlines on this slide all kind of run together. because they're so close together. And it's unclear if the sentences down below are independent or maybe they're definitions of the terms above. We actually have to read it to figure that out. Now, if we start to group the elements together and spread them out and create some space in between them, it makes it more clear that there are actually 4 blocks of information and that they each have a term and definition. However, it still takes a moment to determine which definition goes with which term. So let's see if we can do a little bit better and move those definitions even closer. So it's a much more subtle change, but simply moving the description closer to the term makes it much easier to read and understand the content. On this example, we have 4 bullet points that fill the entire slide, and it's unclear where one starts and the other begins because it's just so crammed in there. In fact, that second column of bullets, they're just kind of floating in between. It's hard to tell what they're even there for. All the text is very close to the edge with very narrow margins. So let's go ahead and do some grouping and create some space in this layout. Okay, much better. In this case, the text did get smaller, but the bullets and groups of information are much easier to follow, and they're grouped in a logical way. Also note the large margins on the left and right side. Designers call this white space, and it's one of our favorite things. White space creates areas of rest and separation and allows your eye to quickly identify groups of information. So keep in mind that the basic purpose of proximity is to organize related information closely together, and simply grouping related elements together into closer proximity and creating some white space automatically creates organization. If the information's organized, it's much more likely to be read and more likely to be remembered. Also, good proximity is difficult when you have too many elements on the page, so spread out your content onto different slides if it comes to that. Don't create relationships with elements that don't belong together. Make sure they all relate. Don't stick things in the corner or in the middle just because the space is empty. I know we love to fill that white space, but don't. Try to group things together nicely. All right, let's jump on to the second principle. And this principle is alignment, where we need to visually connect all the elements. Nothing should be placed on the page arbitrarily. Every item should have a visual connection with something else on the page. And while items are aligned on the page, the result is a much stronger cohesive unit. So let's look at this example. This intro slide isn't bad, but it could be better if we apply the principle of alignment. Because we do this often. We just drop the title in the upper third of the slide and put other elements directly below it, center aligned. There's just, it looks fine by itself, but there's no visual connection between the text on the right and the grid on the left, which has some really strong lines that we could easily connect to. So for better alignment, we're going to move the text around. We're going to shift it all over here to the left. This is starting to look so much better. And the reason why is because we now have alignment. All the text is now strong left aligned so that all the text is visually connected. And we took the lines that are extended out from those squares, and all the text now sits on those lines. And that creates visual connections between the entire slide. All right, here's another example. Elements that are far apart can still be connected through alignment. So right now, teaching and this block of text aren't close to each other, so they're definitely not related, and that text at the bottom is just floating around. So if we simply left align that content down at the bottom, we have a strong visual connection to the text above with this line that I've drawn right there. There's even a subtle connecting line in a photograph. If you're wondering where I decided to put that bottom block of text, that's why. Now you know. So even when aligned elements are physically separated from each other, there's this invisible lines. I'm drawing them on the screen so that you can see them, but those yellow lines wouldn't normally be there. Those invisible lines connect both your eye and your mind. So even if you organize separate elements away from each other to indicate their individual relationships, using that principle of proximity, the principle of alignment tells the viewer that even though these items aren't close, they still belong to the same piece and relate to each other. In this example, I have a lot of information on the slide and it's organized. Things are in good proximity to each other, but they're not visually connected. So I'm going to start shifting things around, make that photo bigger, just adjust the text box size. Not a whole lot of movement going around, but now there's very strong left alignment. There's also alignment across the bottom, and there's alignment across the eyes. You always want to look at eyes in a photograph and see how those are connected to that title. There's alignment all the way around this slide, making it much better designed. Okay, this is a very classic slide you want to see. It should look very familiar, where we drop in a verse or large block of text and we center align it. This is a habit I all want us to break. This is the default to center align text. It feels very safe and very comfortable. However, center alignment is the weakest alignment option when it comes to aligning text. Those ragged edges of the text are very soft. We need strong lines to give visual strength and make connections in the layout. And we can't really do that well with center alignment. It's almost always better to combine a strong flush left or right alignment with good use of proximity. And you'll be amazed at the change in your work. So when you see everything shift over, it makes a huge difference. We now have strong left alignment on the verse and on the title and along the bottom. It visually connects all these pieces together. Also note the added space in between each of the verses. It provides some proximity and grouping for each of those verses, making it easier to read and understand. All right, we've made it to our first tool tip. I'm going to have these tips throughout the presentation that relate to the various topics. And in this case, we're going to be taking a look at the Arrange tool, because PowerPoint can help you make sure that things are perfectly aligned and evenly spaced using the Arrange tool. So I'm starting with 3 different squares that are on my slide here, and I can select and drag all of them or hold down Shift and click all of them. And then I go to the Arrange palette and make sure that I'm going to align by selected objects, and I'm going to select Align Middle. And right there, they all align to the middle, and now I want to distribute them horizontally, and that will evenly distribute the space in between them. I can also align based on the slide, but in this case I aligned based on the objects. Another helpful tool for alignment built into PowerPoint are guides and smart guides. So if you right click on your slide, you can turn on smart guides, and then you can also go in and add vertical or horizontal grid lines. So here I've added a vertical one and I've lined it up with the edge of the E. And now I'm going to add a horizontal one, and I'm going to line that up with the bottom of the title, so that if anything needs to line up with the bottom of this text, I can easily do that. Okay, so now I'm going to grab my first object just by clicking and dragging, and notice how it just snaps to that line that I drew. So now these are perfectly in line. But I want to add more, so I'm going to click and hold down Control and drag this over, and notice all these helpful lines that appear. I have these very helpful spacing arrows that show that I have even spacing across all of the shapes, and now I drop that down and I can see that it's aligned with the next row down. So now I have perfectly aligned, perfectly spaced squares just by clicking and dragging. I didn't even have to use that Align tool. I just used the Smart Guides. All right, so for alignment principle, we want to try to make sure we connect all elements on the page, which means we should always look for ways to visually anchor objects when placing them on the page. And you'll have a lot more options if you select left or right alignment rather than the default center alignment. The third principle of design is one of the more fun and simple principles. All you need to remember is to repeat things. You can repeat colors, shapes, textures, spatial relationships, line thicknesses, fonts, sizes, graphic concepts. This develops organization and strengthens unity. Repetition can also be thought of as consistency. So here's an example I'm just showing a group of 9 different slides, all from the same presentation. In this slide, you'll see all kinds of repeating elements. Even though the content and design of the slides varies from page to page, there are common elements that appear on every page of the presentation. Here's another example where you can see repeating elements of lines and colors and photo treatments. Even the types of photos that are selected are repeated throughout. There's still a lot of variety, but there's unity within that variety of layouts. Repetition's very useful on one-page pieces, but it's absolutely critical on multi-page documents like PowerPoint, where you have all these slides that from beginning to end need to feel like one cohesive unit. So here's another tool tip that PowerPoint does to help you create repetition. We're going to be looking at color and font themes. PowerPoint has a great way to help you make sure your colors and fonts are consistent throughout your presentation. So if you go up to the ribbon, we can select alternate color themes. So I'm going to start right here into the design tab, and you can see right away I can select different color themes, and with this little drop down I can click into colors and choose different sets of colors, and I can even customize those colors and choose colors that I like. So here I changed everything to orange or red. This is without going through every single file or every single slide. I also can go through and change my font. There's also dark and light variants options that you can choose from. This is a quick and easy way to change all the repeating colors and elements throughout your slide. One of the easiest ways to get consistency is to adjust repeating elements on the slide master. The slide master is where you get all the pre-made layouts and designs in the new slide and layout drop-downs. Any changes you make to the master slide will change across all the slides that use that slide design or layout. So this is a template I want to start with, and overall I like the design, and I like these slides over here on the left. There's some pre-made ones. I also like that I can go in and choose different slide layouts. In fact, I'm going to take this one and change the layout to this. Quickly it updates and it looks great. However, there is something I want to change. I'm going to go to slide number 2 and notice how the heading at the top is not in close proximity to the text. It's really high. Now I could go and change this heading on this page and then adjust it when it happens anywhere else, but there's an easier way. I'm going to go into the slide master, and here you can see where I can actually edit that layout that was used to create that slide. And I'm going to move it down just in this master slide, and then I'm going to close the master view and go back to that slide, and you can see it's already updated not only on that slide but on the next slide and slide number 5 where that layout was used as well. So this is a quick and easy way to quickly update your slides and make sure that they are consistent throughout. So repetition is pretty straightforward. Just repeat elements throughout the design. This is especially important in long-form documents like PowerPoint presentations, and of course, you need some variety among the consistency. Don't just repeat elements to the point of annoyance or even boredom. Okay, the last principle we're going to talk about is contrast. The idea behind contrast is to avoid putting elements on the page that are merely just similar. If the elements of type, color, size, line thickness, shape, space aren't the same, then they need to be noticeably different. Contrast is often the most important visual attraction on a page, which is what makes the reader look at the page in the first place. This is why we see road signs with high contrast, because it grabs your eye, grabs your attention. And contrast not only serves to draw the eye, but you can use it to even organize information. It clarifies the hierarchy and guides a reader around the page and provides focus. In this example, the slide title has great contrast and scale compared to the subtitle, but because the contrast in color is low, your eye actually jumps to the subtitle first. Now the title has high color and scale contrast, so it's clear which is more important, and we naturally gravitate to that first, which is what we want. But remember our previous principle of repetition? What can we do about that? Well, we have this nice bright pink color down in the left side. Let's go ahead and grab that and apply that to our subtitle. So now our subtitle is pink and repeats the color that's used on the left side and now feels more cohesive. Here's another example. It's a bit extreme, but the capitalization and color difference between the title and subtitle aren't enough. We need to bring back that contrast and scale. So I'm going to shrink that text down, and now we're once again looking at a well-balanced design. Contrast also applies to position too. So in this example, note the slight difference in alignment. Our eyes just need a little bit more of a dramatic difference to tell where one line starts and one line stops. So it's much easier to understand this outline if we just shift things over a bit and make it much more noticeable. So now we have contrast in position. But why stop there? Let's add more contrast and do some grouping. So if I group my two main points together and add some bold fonts, we get some visual contrast. The repeating type style creates relationships between similar elements. This is looking much better than where we started. So take a look at your slides and find fonts, line weights, colors that you can change to either be the same or obviously different. Make sure your most important elements on the page have the most contrast, because that's what will draw the eye first. And this begins the process of hierarchy as you guide a reader around the page. Okay, so now that we've have some foundational design principles, we can now consider some of the additional best practices I want to share with some additional PowerPoint tools and tips that can help you in the process. So my first one is brevity. Slide content is meant to support what you're saying and what students are reading in their textbook. Everything that they're learning should not be included on your slides. If you need it in there for maybe studying, put those full-length descriptions in the notes that they can read later when they study. It can be arguably said that slides with less text can be better at grabbing the audience attention than lengthy blocks of text that might lead to students losing interest in your slides. So keep in mind that KISS principle, which isn't limited to graphic design. In general, you'll find more success when you avoid complexity. All right, let's talk about images, because images capture attention and support what you're saying in your class. So take time to find high quality photos that coordinate with your topic. Not on every slide, but try to fit them in when it makes sense. Remember, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Finding good images can be challenging, so I've provided some sources to help you out here. So first couple here are unsplash.com and freeimages.com. I don't necessarily recommend them. You're welcome to take a look and use them, but we do have better options as university staff. The main one that I'm going to talk about here is a relatively new resource that the university now has access to through our Adobe license that the university maintains for all faculty and staff. It allows you to use Acrobat Pro and Photoshop, but it also allows you to access Adobe Stock at stock.adobe.com. I'll show you what that looks like. You can log in using your Cedarville username and password, and all you got to do is search for what you need and click the license button and download. So I'm going to type in the word chemistry, and here you can see some really nice high quality chemistry photo. Can try students in class, and you'll see some really nice high quality, high resolution images. All the images in my presentation that are stock are pulled from Adobe Stock or AI generated. I've included a small note in each corner of the images so that you know where they came from. All right, the last option are the built-in stock images that are right there in PowerPoint. You've probably already found this. It's the most obvious option, but because they're so easy to access and search within PowerPoint. So I'm going to show that to you, but I'm going to show you something else you can do with the images once you have them in. So this is a slide, and I want to add a photo of an apple. So I'm going to go to Insert, Pictures, and then Stock Images, and head over to this stock image window and type in the word apple. Okay, right away I'm not seeing what I'm looking for, but if I scroll down, here, great. I just want a simple apple. I'm gonna insert that in, resize it a bit, but it's not exactly what I want because I don't want that white box. I just want an apple. So I'm gonna click this button, remove background, and it's gonna highlight the background in pink. And I can actually adjust that with these tools over here, but I actually like what I have. So I'm gonna say keep changes. And now I have an apple that I can move around over my slide anywhere I want without a background. Notice that I didn't put Google image search on the list. That's because the quality of images you find through internet searches range, and you have to be careful about copyright. So always consider fair use guidelines. This link will take you on the slide to the Centennial Library site for more information. If you're unsure or about using your slides beyond the classroom, you should filter your search in your Google search terms under Tools, go to Menu and select Usage Rights and search for Creative Commons licensed images to be sure you're using something that you are permitted to use. All right, so what if you need an image that's unique and different from anything you can find on stock websites? That's where AI comes in. There are a lot of AI image generators out there, and I'm only gonna bring up a few since that's a whole nother topic. So Microsoft rolled out their AI image generator, I believe, in March, and right now it's only available for personal accounts, not corporate accounts like Cedarville's. It's possible they may include it in corporate accounts, but it's unknown now at the moment. If they do roll it out, it's likely that they'll integrate it into PowerPoint in the future so you don't have to even leave the application. So I'm sharing this resource just in case it becomes relevant in the future. The next one is ChatGPT. You may already be in this one. It's most likely the one that you're using. It can generate images if you ask it to. However, if you're using the free version, it can only generate a few images during a certain period of time. You need to actually go upgrade to the paid plus plan to cover generating unlimited images. Microsoft Copilot is similar to ChatGPT, and once again, you can get a limited number of queries per day. Midjourney is arguably the best AI generator out there, very, very lifelike and realistic, but you do have to have a paid account to use it. The one I'm going to recommend today, if you're interested, is a resource I use the most. Firefly is made by Adobe, and it's included also in our Adobe accounts. So Adobe guarantees that all the learning that goes into their images is from photography and artwork that they own the rights to. Your use of the images generated on Firefly are not only legal to use in class, you can also use them commercially. So let's take a look at what that looks. All you got to do is log in using your Cedarville credentials and type in your prompts. So let's say you wanted to have an image to promote an upcoming donut break you're hosting for all your overworked friends. So I just type in a prompt and I get a result. And this is nice, but it could be better. I definitely need it to be widescreen. And I think I want to do art because the photograph, I want it to be, I don't want it to look like a real person. So I'm going to now go to effects and choose a different style. So maybe fantasy is what I want. So let's generate, and now it's going to be widescreen and fantasy. No, it's still a little bit too realistic. So I'm going to scroll through, maybe try anime, comic book. No, let's go with comic book and turn off that fantasy. And now here, generate again. And what I get, much better. So if I click there, I can hit upscale and it will actually make it even higher resolution. And I can download this and use this in my promotion for my donut break. Okay, this next tip is something that's not a huge deal, but it's definitely a pet peeve of mine as the brand manager. You gotta make sure that your images aren't squished. That is definitely something that's gonna make your content not look good. So here I have an example of what that looks like. Anytime you resize your images, do not use those handles on the sides. You can see when I do that, oh, that baby just cries even harder. If I click size and position, you can see here the percentage between the height and width is different. So to fix that, I'm going to make those percentages the same. Change that to 31, and now my logo is fixed. Oh, much better. To prevent this from happening, always scale using those corner handles. Don't use the handles on the side. All right, let's talk about automation. Let's face it, we don't have a ton of time to spend creating PowerPoint presentations. Thankfully, there's several helpful tools built into PowerPoint that can help you design faster and better. Microsoft offers hundreds of templates on their website at create.microsoft.com. All you got to do is log in with your Cedarville credentials and click the search button and filter by presentations and search. So we're going to do that. Change category here to presentations, and then go up to the search bar. You can see we already have lots of different options. As I scroll through there, some of these might look familiar that I've used in this presentation. In fact, anytime I use one of these templates, I list the name at the bottom of the slide so that you can go in to this and search for it if you'd like to use it. So here I've done a search and it's filtered out the options. There's just some really good options here for you to pull from. All right, the next automation tool is the designer pane. And as I open this up, you'll actually see other ways to find templates. So if I go to new, you'll see all these office templates that pop up here. These are the same ones that create. There's also a Cedarville University button, and if you click on that and go to University Branding, you'll see some options that may look familiar. These are templates that our administration typically use, and you are welcome to use them as well. And we're periodically rolling out new ones. But I'm going to go ahead and start with a blank presentation for this example of designer pane, and I'm going to just start typing. So I'm going to type in my topic of chemistry, and I'm going to type in amazing reactions as my subtitle, and then I'm going to go up to the top and click on that designer button, and right away we start to get some really interesting options that are pre-built into Microsoft PowerPoint. It actually brings in animations and entrances for my text. These images relate to chemistry, and they're really perfect for what I need. I didn't even have to go searching. It just did the work for me. In fact, I can also create additional layout slides, and they already take on the colors that match my first slide that I created using the designer tool. All right, so here's another example of using the designer pane to quickly arrange content on a slide. This is a blank slide that I created, and I just dragged in all my photos, and I just realized, wow, I've got to figure out how to space all of these photos that are slightly different in size around the page. I could do it, but it's going to take a long time. Let's click on the designer tool, and right away, instantly, I have multiple options to choose from. I can keep them all in a row. This is the design that I chose. But there are lots of others. Notice how it is content aware. It frames everything very nicely. It does such a great job. This just saved me so much time. The next tool is the Smart Art tool, and it's a great way to quickly turn your text content into dynamic graphics. So in this example, I have some basic text that's been typed into this text box, and I want to make it graphic. So I'm going to go over here to the Convert to Smart Art, and I'm going to select a chart that makes sense. Of course, this is a cycle, so I'm going to use the basic cycle chart, but there are lots of other options that I could choose from. And right away, you'll see that it takes all my text and puts it in this pane over here to the side. And I have all kinds of different options for styles that I can choose from. So these are kind of more dimensional, 3D looking, perspective. These are kind of cool. I can change the color, make it more interesting. I'm going to make it flat so it's easier to read. And the cool thing is, once I've made it the way I want it, I can still change it. So I'm going to make it larger to fill the space better. And then if I want to move this circle around, I can. It's all dynamic. All the elements are moving around with the objects that I've moved so that I can personalize it and make it the way that I want without having to create all these individual objects and do all that work. All right, so what if there's a function you want but you don't see it? I want you to check out the add-ins feature found on the Home ribbon. So let's assume I want to provide a QR code on this page for you to scan and find this book on Amazon. So I'm going to go up to that top right, click on add-ins and type in QR code. and I'm going to use this QR for Office add-in, and I'm going to type in there the URL that I want to go to, adjust the size, and then click Insert, and boom, I have a QR code that I can drop onto my page to share a link to Amazon to promote this book. All right, so another tip that I'm going to give you is to get feedback. If you're not sure what to change, ask a coworker or even a student if you dare to give you some thoughts on your slides. Maybe just redesign a portion of a presentation based on that feedback and see if they like it better. Even trained designers offer their work to others for critique. It's a healthy way to improve. Speaking of feedback, did you know PowerPoint will give you feedback? If you go to the slideshow ribbon, you'll find a Rehearse with Coach button, and as you practice, you'll get feedback as you go related to how fast you're going and how you're talking, and if you're using filler words, you can turn those notifications on and off. Either way, at the end, you will get this really nice report that gives you a summary of how long you spoke, how many slides you rehearsed, your pace, your words per minute, how often you repeat words. In my case, I got to work on that monotone. These are nice, helpful feedback elements that you can apply to your presentations. All right, my last tip is to just start small. I know this can all be overwhelming and we might find more things to change than we have time for, but if you start small, you can make it happen. So select one element to change each time you teach your class, and every little bit helps. At the very least, you can start by paying attention to design that appeals to you around you and start thinking about why it looks good. Consider how the design follows each principle of design: proximity, repetition, contrast, and alignment. And remember, you can do it. So that is the end. I'm going to give some resources to you. If you visit cedar.to/Jackson PowerPoint, you can download this PowerPoint deck. You can also download a simple sheet of notes to be able to have all of the bullets that are in the presentation for future reference.